Do you have intrusive and frequent thoughts that cause you to have repetitive and ritualistic behaviors? Do you see yourself obsessing over small things which causes intense amount of anxiety and distress in your life? If you've answered yes to these questions, then it is highly probable that you are going through something known as obsessive-compulsive disorder or OCD. So stick around for today's video where we will take an in-depth look at what OCD is and what you can do about it. Individuals with OCD have described having this sudden urge to have these behaviors which allows them to reduce the stress and anxiety within. It is not easy for these individuals to have that urge taken away without having that compulsive behavior in effect. Even if they manage to have that urge, subsided for a certain time, it comes back 10 times stronger. It is known to affect males and females equally. And most of these times, the obsession is due to certain themes in their life. So for example, if an individual is, obsessive about dirt, then the compulsive behavior is to constantly wash. Now, obsessive-compulsive disorder has two components to it. One, the obsession component. In this, you will see the individual have intrusive thoughts, and these thoughts can take over their life so much so that to release the anxiety and distress, they develop a ritualistic component which is known as the compulsions. Now, the compulsion behavior can be related to the actual fear or the thought, or it could be something completely different that the individual engages in to reduce the stress and anxiety. It is important to note that the compulsive behavior, even though provides a temporary relief, they tend to become stronger and stronger where the individual is just constantly focused on the obsessive thought and the compulsive ritual to ease the distress within. The examples of obsessive thoughts could include the fear of contamination or dirt, the fear of uncertainty or losing control in your life, the need to have things a certain way, or even horrific thoughts such as harming yourself or others. This causes compulsive behaviors such as constantly washing your hands if you think a place is dirty or contaminated, maybe checking the doors more often, maybe putting things in a constant symmetrical proportion in your house. Why OCD develops is not exactly known, but theoretically it has three causes attributed for it. The first is biological, where your body's own natural functions get inhibited in a certain way, causing a difference in your brain chemistry. Second is genetics. Because anxieties do tend to run in families, it is thought that OCD has a genetic component, but the specific genes have yet to be identified. And environmental, where certain behaviors are mimicked. So for example, if a mom is showing obsessive-compulsive behaviors, it is highly likely that the child might mimic those behaviors and get a learned pattern of developing OCD. There are three components for the development of OCD, and those risk factors include family history. If there is a parent or another family member that suffers from OCD, it is highly likely that somebody else in the family can take it on as a learned behavior. Stressful life events such as abuse of any kind and traumatic life experiences can cause the development of OCD due to the presence of intrusive thoughts. Compulsive behaviors come into shape when the person is trying to deal with the intrusive thought to remove the distress and anxiety that they are facing. It can be related to other mental health disorders such as anxiety disorders, depression, substance abuse, and tic disorders. If you're finding this video informative so far, then do give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Some of the complications of OCD include excessive amount of time spent obsessing over the thoughts and distress in one's life, contact dermatitis when there's excessive washing of hands, troubled relationships. It affects where you work and how you interact with other people in your life, resulting in lesser social interactions, leading to isolation. It can also lead to a poorer quality of life, resulting in individuals developing suicidal thoughts. To get a diagnosis of OCD, you will have to go to a trained mental health professional or a psychiatrist. First and foremost, a psychological evaluation will be done where your intrusive thoughts are explored. How have they taken shape? What are you obsessing over? And how have those thoughts caused you to have compulsive behaviors? How often are you doing those compulsive behaviors or the ritualistic activities in your life will determine if a diagnosis is appropriate. To further help them reach this diagnosis, your mental health professional will reach out to your family and friends and consult them to get an understanding of how these ritualistic behaviors have affected you. They will also use the DSM-5 criteria for diagnosing OCD, which was given by the American Psychiatric Association. And finally, they will do a physical exam to rule out any other underlying medical diagnosis before they officially diagnose you with OCD. OCD can be very difficult to treat, but requires an extreme amount of courage and determination from the individual to overcome the symptoms of OCD. Now, the first line of treatment is psychotherapy, under which we have cognitive behavior therapy, where thoughts and emotions and behaviors are explored in detail, and every intrusive thought will be talked about, and how those compulsive behaviors can be changed with slight change in thinking will be explored by a mental health professional. The next one is exposure and response prevention therapy, where your mental health professional will expose you to smaller fear-producing stimuli to showcase to you that nothing is going to happen, that your obsessive thought is not going to cause you any harm. That form of treatment takes time and requires individuals to become consistent in following the therapeutic modality. The next line of treatment is medications. Some of the drugs that are approved by the FDA include clomipramine for adults and children 10 years and older, fluoxetine for adults and children 7 years and older, fluvoxamine for adults and children 8 years and older, sertraline for adults and children 6 years and older, and paroxetine for adults only. It is very important that when you are getting medications that you talk to your psychiatrist about side effects, the interactions with other drugs, and what it would take for you to get off the antidepressants once you see the symptoms get better in you. Sometimes psychotherapy and medication is not enough to treat OCD. More intensive forms of treatment are required, and some of them include intensive outpatient and residential treatment programs, where there is emphasis placed on exposure response prevention treatment so that individuals get more time to focus on how their fears have taken shape in their life. Deep brain stimulation is an approved method by the FDA for adults 18 years and older, where electrodes are placed in certain areas of the brain to control impulses and reduce the symptoms of OCD. Now, my hope with this video was that you found it informative enough to know how debilitating it can become for an individual who lives with OCD. Now, come back here next week where I will be talking about phobias and what they are and how they affect you. In the meantime, have yourself a great week, a great weekend, and I will see you here next week. Bye-bye.